parties are not accurately represented in terms of the votes they get. You end up with these manufactured majorities. It's normal for one political party to get 40–45% of the votes and get a majority government. So one political party gets all the power, even though most people voted against them. You have the gerrymandering problem, voter turnout problem, lots of wasted votes, and third parties, minorities, women tend to be squeezed out of the system. Then you have something called at-large voting, which is sort of the same system on steroids. This is the way they elect city councilors in Vancouver, for example. And let's say we're going to have 8 people on city council. So they're elected at large from the city, and you get a ballot with all the names of all the candidates, and you get to vote 8 times. So you get to put 8 X's because there's 8 people getting elected. Now, what's wrong with that? It works the same way as the single member plurality, only sort of magnified. You get, not only is one small group electing the members, but the same small group is electing all 8 of them. So what's typical is you get a sweep. Boom. Everybody in City Hall represents the same faction. And that goes on and on and on until they have an election. Boom, they all get thrown out and somebody else gets in. And that's what we see in practice. And it has basically the same advantages, if you call them advantages, and the same flaws as single member plurality, only more so. Then there's 2-round runoff voting. The kind of voting system, just the way if your parents were Catholics, you're probably a Catholic, and if your parents were Hindu, you're probably a Hindu. What kind of voting system you use probably is determined not because at some point anybody sat down and said, what kind of voting system should we use? No. If you were part of the British Commonwealth, you use single member plurality, and if you were part of the French Empire, you're liable to use something called the 2-round system. So what is that? Well, you elect your president, say, and somebody gets 50% of the votes, they're elected. And the basic concept is you have to get half the votes to get elected. So if nobody gets 50%, well, the top 2 guys run in another election. They have a runoff, and usually come years later. And that has the advantage that that person can say, hey, I got 50% of the votes. So they've got a clear mandate. The disadvantage is, of course, well, it's still a majoritarian system. It's still the same people are getting elected. It ends vote splitting, but you don't really, you're still homogenizing everything down to the mushy middle, and you're not getting diversity of representation. And plus you have the added expense of having a second election, which is not only expensive, but the turnout tends to drop off even more dramatically in the second election. And so that system is basically comes from France and countries that came under French influence. So it's used in Monaco and places that used to be part of the French Empire, like Mali and Togo and Chad and Gabon and Haiti, as well as the French influence spread into Russia. So a lot of these former Soviet countries use that kind of system as well. And it has basically, well, we talked about that. Okay. So those are majoritarian systems. They're the winner-take-all types of voting systems. And they have those certain attributes. They ensure a majority. A winner, clear winners is what they're after. Now you get to proportional representation voting systems. We need to understand that 200 years ago, the political party as we understand it now didn't really exist. There were Whigs and there were Tories, but they didn't have the kind of party discipline we had now. If John A. Macdonald wanted to get something through Parliament, he had to actually stand up and make a 5-hour speech in Parliament to convince his own members to vote for them. Along about the beginning of the 20th century, the political party evolved into a machine for electing people. Since that time, it's been almost impossible to get elected without the support of a political party machine. About that time, new democracies were emerging in Europe, and they realized, wait a minute, it's not these individual politicians who have the power, it's political parties who have the power. We need to be able to choose which party we want to form our government. And so they developed what are called proportional voting systems, and the basic concept is very simple. What you're looking for is an outcome where each party elects a number of members in proportion to the votes they got. So if a party gets 40% of the votes, they get 40% of the seats. If they get 10% of the votes, they get 10% of the seats. And you have this direct connection between how you voted and what you get. So, different types of proportional system. As I said, the basic concept, you've got to have a multi-member riding of some sort. So you've got to elect more than one person in an electoral district so that they can be divvied up. It's not winner take all. So the easiest way is to have each party put forward a list. And you're going to have a much larger riding. And again, the details are infinite. What's a larger riding? Does it elect 8 members? Does it elect 17? In a country like Israel or Holland, the entire country is one big riding. And the party list system, the basic idea is each party puts forward a list of candidates, a numbered list, okay? Number 1, Stephen Harper. Number 2, Peter MacKay. Number 3, etc. And then you vote for the party, and they count up how many votes each party's got. They decide, okay, this party's got this percentage of the votes. They get 39 seats. Therefore, numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down to 39 are elected. Number 40 didn't make the cut. So that's the fundamental principle. There's a bunch of wrinkles on it. First of all, you can impose an artificial threshold. You may say, wait a minute, you don't get any seats unless you got like 5% of the votes overall, or 2%, or 4%, or 10%, or whatever, right? Another wrinkle that has come up is instead of just voting for the party, there's what they call open list systems. You can vote for a particular candidate. The vote counts for the party, but it also counts for the candidate in terms of determining where that person comes on the list. And that's actually the type of system that's used in most countries in Europe today, an open list system. Finland uses a system like that. And now there's various formulas for determining how the seats get allocated off the list, and I won't go into that because that really is getting far too geeky. Now, mixed member systems. Some people don't like the idea of voting for a party list. Say, well, it's not democracy. It's all about electing our individual candidate. After World War II, Germany was in shambles, and the Allies were divvying the place up, trying to come up with a system, and so some of the Allies were saying, well, we need a party list system, that's what's fair, and the British were saying, no, 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 and the Americans were saying, no, no, you've got to have individual representatives. So what they came up with was a mixed system. In Germany, they elect half of their members of parliament from party lists. They elect the other half in single-member ridings. And it's not, well, they actually have state lists, because they have individual states like we have provinces, so they have state lists, and then I believe they have a small national list as well, just to really get lots of ideal proportionality. And but here's a key factor. The way they do it is you count up all the votes and decide, okay, this party is entitled to 39 seats. They elected 26 members in ridings. They need